Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Please put your first name in the chat and let us know what city you're zooming in from. Welcome, everyone. Please put your first name in the chat and let us know what city you're zooming in from. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to a special Piggy Bank Essentials, how to get paid to be a caregiver. Put your first name in the chat and let us know what city you're zooming in from. Welcome, everyone, to a special Piggy Bank Essentials, how to get paid to be a caregiver. Put your first name in the chat. Put your first name in the chat and let us know what city you're zooming in from. Wonderful. We have people from across the nation joining us for our special Piggy Bank Essentials, how to get paid to be a caregiver. Please put your first name in the chat and let us know what city you're zooming in from. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Put your first name in the chat. Let us know what city you're zooming in from. Good morning. Please put your first name in the chat. Let us know what city you're zooming in from. Please put your first name in the chat. Let us know what city you're zooming in from.
And then essentially, I think, a key meeting at Trump Tower, the 2015.
Welcome, everyone, to a really special Piggy Bank Essentials. Today, we're back with how to get paid to be a caregiver. I'm Jacqueline Cole, and I'll be your host today, and I'm very glad you could join us. Before we jump in, we ask everyone to observe the following meeting agreements so everyone can have a good experience. Please keep yourself on mute. Let's not have distracting background noises. Use the chat to raise questions and add comments. Assume everyone's good intentions using respectful language and tone. Please note, if your camera is on, we can see what's happening in your background. And this meeting is being recorded, so those who can't be with us today can still view the program at a later time on our AARP California YouTube channel. So please click Got It when it appears on your screen. If you're not familiar, AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people to choose how they live as they age. AARP works to strengthen communities and advocates for what matters most, with a focus on health security, financial resilience, and social connection. Today's program focuses on financial security. So if you haven't already, please put your first name and what city you're zooming in from. Sarita, who's joining us today? Who's in the audience?
Wow, Jacqueline, we've got people from all over the country. We've got people from Missouri, California, of course, is well represented. We've got people from Ohio, Florida, Georgia, New Hampshire, Colorado, Tennessee. We've got people from everywhere. So we've got a good representation today. Everyone's interested in learning about this topic.
Thank you so much, Sarita. Thank you for sharing, all of you, sharing your name in the chat. So to get warmed up, we have 3 poll questions and ask you to quickly submit your answers. And as always, the survey is anonymous. Question 1, including yourself, how has your caregiver role evolved? I was suddenly a caregiver. It developed slowly over a few years. My caregiving role will eventually grow more over time. Oh, wow. Kind of almost neck and neck, but a lot of caregivers out there. So I was suddenly a caregiver, 28%. It developed slowly over a few years, 38%. My caregiving role will eventually grow more over time, 34%. Thank you. And our next poll question, how has your caregiver role, hold on. Those came up. Including yourself, how many in your friend or family group are caregivers? None, just me.
Sorry, Jacqueline, we're having a little bit of trouble with the poll question.
Okay.
It's not. Okay, I've got this poll, so.
Okay, I'll do this one. What financial trade-offs have you made in order to be a caregiver? Reduced your work hours, used vacation or sick leave, used personal funds, taken out a loan, borrowed money, or all of the above? Okay, it looks like reduced work hours around 45%, use vacation or sick leave 25%, use personal funds 59%. This is going to be really good for you. Taken out a loan, borrowed money 5%, and all of the above 9%. Thank you for sharing in that poll. And one last poll.
Okay, Jacqueline, we don't have a third.
No. Okay, we're good. Thank you. So today, we're introducing our speaker. We are excited to bring you how to get to be a paid caregiver. It is now my pleasure to introduce our guest speakers, Martin Booker, Vanessa Souza, and Lisa Winstill. Martin Booker is Director of Financial Health at AARP Foundation, leading various financial education initiatives about investing, Social Security, and budgeting. Martin has a master's degree in social work from the University of Connecticut and is a certified financial planner. Prior to coming to AARP, he worked in the nonprofit sector in Washington, D.C., and developed a passion for helping people improve their money habits. Today, Martin offers individual and group coaching services and classes and leads workshops about credit, investing, retirement planning, and other finance-related topics. His goal is to engage and educate people to better understand how to make money and keep their money. Vanessa Souza is a licensed clinical social worker with a focus on supporting older adults. She has a particular interest in ensuring people living with Alzheimer's disease and dementia and their family and friends have the knowledge needed to prepare for the future. She has worked as an assisted living administrator, memory care director, and as a social worker in adult daycare. Today, she works as a senior manager for community engagement at the Alzheimer's Association of Northern California and Northern Nevada. And Lisa Winstell is a dedicated nonprofit strategic leader and advocate for family caregiving. Prior to her current position as the program manager for caregiving at the AARP Foundation, Lisa served as the chief operating officer at Caregiver Action Network, CAN, for 14 years, representing CAN and caregiver issues as an advisor, advocate, and brand ambassador. Lisa was a team lead in developing a multifaceted partnership with Sam's Club to support caregivers and a website for family caregivers of loved ones with rare diseases, rarecaregivers.org. Lisa's work is influenced by her personal experiences as her mother's caregiver during a battle with a rare cancer and providing hospice care at home for her father during the pandemic. Lisa received her master's degree from Hines College, used to be School of Urban and Public Affairs, at Carnegie Mellon University. She lives in Clarksburg, Maryland with her husband, Jeff. They are very proud parents of 2 young adults and 1 overly energetic dog. Keep in mind that these programs may not be available in your state. However, they may have something similar. And remember, please put any questions for Martin, Vanessa, or Lisa in the chat during the program, and they will answer them. We will answer as many of them as we can during the Q&A portion of our program. Welcome, Martin, Vanessa, and Lisa.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to be here. This is going to be a fantastic conversation about caregiving overall. So really looking forward to leading this discussion and having everyone hear from our experts today. We have 2 fantastic experts who focus on caregiving, and we're looking forward to this discussion. So we're going to dive in because we have lots of questions. We have lots to discuss, and I don't want us to miss anything during our time or run out of time. So we're going to start off. I want to just kind of give a quick disclaimer. We want to make sure that you're aware that, can everyone hear me? Hear me just fine? I hear that my sound's a little, is everything okay? Yeah, okay, I'm getting some yeses. All right. So, and everyone can see my screen just fine. Are we good there? All right, so let's dive in. So the quick disclaimer, we are talking about, we're providing information for you all. This is not legal or financial advice for any one specific person. For those things, you do want to talk to an expert who's looking at your specific situation, because as we know, personal finance is very personal. So you want to talk to an expert in that case, but we are going to give general advice. We're going to give relevant advice, and we're going to give candid advice around caregiving and how to be paid as a caregiver. So without further ado, let's jump in, and I want to start off with Vanessa. So Vanessa, we want to let's start off and just kind of set the stage around caregivers. Who are our caregivers? What do we know about caregivers?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Martin. I think we saw a lot of this already in the chat. But there really is no one typical caregiver, right? We span all generations. And I include myself in that. I've been both a professional and an informal caregiver in my life, like many folks will be. So there's caregivers of every single living generation. We do know that 3/4 of caregivers across all illnesses, disabilities, diseases are women, and 2/3 of caregivers of folks living with dementia are women. So women are disproportionately affected by caregiving, but everyone is a caregiver. And again, we saw this in the chat, but a lot of folks who are doing family caregiving, friendship, kinship, caregiving also work in a formal job, right? So 60% of folks work in a formal job, and 60% of that 60% are working full time, meaning 40 hours plus. And a lot of us, who are doing caregiving and working, that's having an impact on our paid work, right? So those of us who are working in caregiving in this Zoom, but also those of us in this Zoom who are employers, who might have people working for you who are giving care to a family member, friend, neighbor, keep this in mind, that this other work, this unpaid or hopefully eventually paid work, right? If you're able to benefit from some of these programs, has an impact on your career. 6 out of 10 working caregivers have to change their work in some way, including reducing hours, which might mean losing some benefits, including, coming in early, calling in sick, going in late in order to provide that care. So caregiving is impacting all of us across all facets of our life, not just that relationship with the person that we're taking care of.
Understood. Thanks for sharing that. And when we talk about the types of things that caregivers are doing, could you tell us a little more about that, Vanessa?
Yeah, so I wanted to give kind of a picture of all the things that caregivers do. And Lisa and I are going to talk more about which of those things you can actually be compensated for. But I just wanted to level set and take a look at the whole picture. So as caregivers, we're stepping in and helping with things from the practical to the very personal. We're coordinating transportation or maybe taking people places on our own. We're taking care of those household chores, so those instrumental activities of daily living, like the laundry and the house cleaning, preparing meals, right? All of these things. We're also providing help with hands-on caregiving activities of daily living, like helping folks put on their clothes, helping them with their hygiene, maybe even helping to feed someone or brush their teeth, right? So we're doing all these hands-on things. And then there's other parts of caregiving that are a little less concrete, harder to put an hourly rate or put any sort of monetary, compensation to, like just that companionship and comfort, right? We can't really put a number of hours or a rate on the time that we're just spending with our loved one being there together. And so I did on this list try to indicate a few things that are definitely paid services in most programs, and some of those things that might be a little fuzzy, like, for example, organizing someone's medications and reminding them to take them might not be something that you're compensated for. Dispensing medications under a doctor's order might be. So there's some of these where it really depends on the circumstance. But regardless as to whether they're able to be compensated under these programs or not, these are all part of that big picture. And as I said on the last slide, caregiving hits every aspect of our life, every aspect of their life as the care receiver as well.
Yeah. And let's talk about, when we think about caregivers, we're talking about, in some cases, it can be close family, close friends. Some of us may not even think of ourselves as a caregiver because we're just taking care of our loved ones, right? So, and the idea of being paid, sometimes we don't even consider that. But talk to us a little bit about what it looks like to do this job and not be paid for it. What are some of the studies and some of the things that we've learned in that space?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. So as you can see here, there are millions of people, right, in this country providing unpaid care for someone over the age of 18. So this 48 million includes, parents and siblings taking care of younger adults with disabilities, possibly. This includes spouses and adult children. This includes neighbors, right? Some of us might be the caregiver for someone who's not a relative, but a close friend, or someone that doesn't have anyone else and has come to us, right? 11 million of those folks specifically are providing care for someone with dementia, and there's some extra complications that go along, right, with caring for someone with dementia as opposed to another illness. If we had to pay for that across the board, if every person was compensated for every hour of that work, That value is over $600 billion. That is in line with the value of Walmart, right? So just to give you a concept of how big caregiving is in our nation, right? It's on par with the budget of some of the biggest companies that exist. And again, specifically for folks living with dementia, that's more than half of it. Over $345 billion is the value of the care that we're giving to folks living with dementia.
Wow. Wow. So lots of dollars, lots of thankless hours in some cases, right? But in many cases, a labor of love for a lot of people. All right, Lisa, let's turn to you for a second and let's kind of talk a little bit about this. So as we just heard, some of the unpaid numbers, but tell us a little bit more about the folks who are seeking this information and want to know more about being paid. Just unmute yourself, please, Lisa.
Sorry, I was coughing. So
No
I'm
worries.
going to tell you the most frequently asked question is, can I get paid? And that's what everybody's entering into the chat. But here's the thing, folks. There are a lot of myths out there and a lot of differences. Each state is different. In some states, each county is different. So if you hear about your sister-in-law in Iowa and she's getting paid, so you want that program too, the fact is that Iowa is different from California, is different from North Carolina, and we're going to get into that right now. So the first thing we're going to be talking about, Martin, are the largest set of programs across the country are Medicaid waivers. How can a family caregiver qualify? They don't. It's all about your care recipient. So the first question you have to ask is, what insurance does your care recipient use? If it is equal to Medicaid or Medicaid and Medicare together. And here's the second qualification. They do not live in any sort of facility. So if your care recipient is in assisted living or a nursing home or continuous care as their residence, even if they're on Medicaid, you cannot get paid. So you have to meet these two qualifications first around your care recipient before the next slides kick in.
That makes sense.
So if those two conditions are true, then the first question you have to ask is there a Medicaid waiver program in my state or the state where my care recipient lives? Then, is there a program that pays family caregivers? Not all of them do. In some states, a spouse can be paid. In some states, not. Some states, spouses can be paid in some programs, but not others. So it's really on a very, very specific level. Then you really have to ask yourself and look at the website and the state and say, does this program have a wait list? I am really sorry to deliver this news, but the national average wait list is 44 months. So if you're thinking about going down this path, get on those wait lists now. Now, let's talk about the next couple of steps in getting ready to be paid.
And what I will say, with a wait list like that, you can possibly, it's planning time, right? So it does provide an opportunity to plan and kind of think through some of these things, like where might I live? Am I moving in with my care recipient, especially if we're in different states? So it does offer some time to plan and prepare while you're in this process.
That's a really great point. It does. And it is different. I mean, 44 months is a national average. There are lists that are shorter.
Yep.
Now, the point I've been trying to make, and I'm going to make it again, is that your care recipient is the one who applies for the Medicaid waiver. So if you hear a caregiver say, I applied to get paid, if it was through a Medicaid waiver, it's really their care recipient. And then once you're accepted, or their care recipient rather is accepted into the program, they get assigned a case manager specifically for the waiver program. And together they'll determine what services are needed and which ones can be paid for according to the budget that's allotted. Okay? So then we have a care recipient with a budget and services. And the key phrase you want to think about is it self-directed? Because that means your care recipient is allowed to hire their own help. And we hope that your care recipient says they want to hire you. So this step is getting hired. A lot of states, you have to have a background check. Your state might require you to have training that the state has approved. Each state has different requirements. I can't emphasize that enough. But if there is a self-direction program with the Medicaid waiver, what will happen is that the caregiver is going to be paid through a financial management services company, like a paycheck company, that the state has approved. It has to be through the state program. And then you're an employee. You have to submit timesheets. Your care recipient is your employer. They have to approve your timesheets, and you get paid. It sounds complicated, but don't worry, your care recipient's going to get a lot of help through this process from their case manager. Now, you're probably all wondering, and I'm kind of looking at the questions as we go in the chat, well, this is all great, but how do I find a Medicaid waiver program that can pay a family caregiver? And that's really what we're here to talk about today. So at the AARP Foundation, to try and answer your question, can I get paid for providing care to my loved one? We created a new tool, and it is the AARP Foundation Paid for Care Hub. We're going to drop that link into the chat a couple of times today. And when you're on this hub, you're going to have a couple of choices. You can click to just find programs that pay, but I really want to bring your attention to this other one called Weigh Your Options. And if you're weighing your options, that means making sure you're making good choices. I saw in the chat earlier a number of people who, for example, left their jobs in order to provide the care that their loved one needed. So you want to make good choices. Now, you'll get to this screener, and there are 4 questions. That's it. We're only going to ask 4 questions to get you to the right program. You're going to enter the state where your loved one is living, if you're caring for a veteran, where your care recipient lives today with you or on their own, and which insurance your care recipient uses. That's it. If you hit submit, then you're going to get a list of the programs in the state that's correct. You can look at the results on the screen and then click through to the application page or the information page from that state, or you can get it as a PDF, and then you can email that PDF to some of your relatives or friends or anybody else who might need that information. So I wanted to tell you about this one woman who used the tool, and she's in Ohio. And she was just amazed. She said, they have all the information that you need within 4 pages. She had been looking for 4 years, trying to just get an answer and getting a direct answer. And I'm going to be honest, people, sometimes the answer is no. There's no program in your state. Medicaid is different in each state, but at least you can get that answer and then figure out your other financial options. The Weigh Your Options section will help you figure out whether you should quit your job, what's in your best financial interest, how it's going to affect your Social Security, how much it would hire to cost somebody, and any other choices. And then another section of the website is also going to give you a taste of what those skill training sessions that the state requires might look like. So if we can go to the next slide, you're going to see a unit on how to help with bathing or dressing or eating. And you're all thinking to yourself, good grief, I already know how to do this. I've been doing it for years. But we wanted to let you see, sort of get a taste of what these training programs might be in the state where you live. So I tried to get through that really pretty quickly. There are quite a few, a number of questions and also some good information available in the chat. But I really want to emphasize each state's program is different. So you might see somebody saying, hey, I found a program, but if they don't live where your care recipient and you live, it might not be the same. So make sure you're looking to compare apples to apples.
Lisa, thanks so much for sharing that information. And I think what excites me most about this conversation is that we have you here who can speak to this from a national perspective. We have people, from all over the country on this call. But then Vanessa is very local to California. You know the California laws, you understand the Medi-Cal program that a lot of people have talked about in the chat. So if you don't mind, I understand that there's been some changes to Medi-Cal. And we'd love to have you tell us a little bit about that so that people are up to date with the newest information.
Yes, thanks so much. And thanks, Lisa, for going through all of that. I think, the really important thing, and you said it a couple of times, but I'll say it again, is that for you to be paid as a caregiver, it's the care receiver, it's the person that you're taking care of who qualifies for these programs. And that's going to be the same in California when we're talking about Medi-Cal. So if you are a person yourself who is caregiving and you don't qualify for Medi-Cal because you have too high of an income or for whatever other reason, that does not affect your ability to be paid to care for your loved one. It's whether your loved one, whether the person you're taking care of qualifies for Medi-Cal. And so in California, our Medicaid program is called Medi-Cal. Our Medicaid waiver for taking care of someone at home is called In-Home Supportive Services, or IHSS. So you may have heard that term kind of out there in the world. In order to qualify to use IHSS services, the person first has to qualify for Medi-Cal. And so we've had some big changes in California that have made a lot more folks eligible for Medi-Cal since January. We went through a two-step process to change our asset limit. First, back last June or July, we increased the asset limit. And then on January 1st, 2024, California eliminated the asset limit for Medi-Cal eligibility. So what that means is that since January, your assets don't affect your eligibility. A person can have assets, there's no cutoff. In most states, there is some sort of cutoff. It varies. In a lot of places, it's $2,000 for a single person. And in California, until we increased it, it was $2,000 in assets for a single person. So from $2,000 to no ceiling is a huge number of people who've become eligible, right? Sometimes people get a little confused and think that means everybody just qualifies. There is still an income limit. Okay, there is still an income limit. So your income is money that you're earning that's coming into you. So that is a paycheck, disability payment, that is dividends if you have investments, right? The money that you get from your investments. If you have another property and you rent it out to somebody, that rental money counts as income. All of that counts toward your eligibility for Medi-Cal, and the income limit depends on your household size, and you can find that on the Medi-Cal website. But assets are resources that you have. So it's not money that you're getting, it's not cash, but it's things you own that have value. So it's like your bank account balance. If you have more than one car, that second car counts as an asset. More than one property, that second or more property counts as an asset. Those no longer have any bearing on your Medi-Cal eligibility. So if you live in California and you or the person who's trying to qualify has a low income and was denied based on too many assets, based on having too much in retirement, based on having stocks, whatever it is, you may qualify now, or the person you care for may qualify now. So I would encourage you to go on to the California state website and do your benefits checkup. They have a free tool on there that you can use. Put in some numbers and it'll spit out what benefits you qualify for, and that includes Medi-Cal.
Thank you. Anything else? But that's a
I did see some questions in here in the chat about how do you know and what is the income, and it's based on your household size. So the best thing to do is go to the website. There's literally an infographic right there that says for 1, 2, 3, 4, how many people, and I can put that website in the chat.
perfect. And we're going to load the chat up with all of the resources that we mentioned But and we're about to dive into Q&A. We wanted to leave lots of time because there's lots of questions. So we're ready to do Q&A, but there's that site one more time. We will drop it in the chat a few more times. We'll put the direct link so you can just click it for the new Paid for Care program with AARP. And Vanessa will drop some information about benefits check and eligibility. But we are ready for Q&A. We want to talk to you all.
Really quick, Martin, just a quick note. Just wanted to say some questions. Lisa has been nice enough and kind enough to drop responses into the chat because there's so many questions. And so now we're going to turn it over to Jacqueline and Sarita. Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot of good, important information. Thank you, Martin and Vanessa and Lisa for sharing the information. So now, as Atisha mentioned, we have a lot of questions and we're going to ask Sarita to tell us what's in the chat, throw some questions out to our panel.
Will do. We have a lot of questions, a lot of comments. I'm going to have one of you address this one, actually. It says, I've inquired about caregiving for my spouse before, and I was told no. Spouses cannot. So, but however, I definitely need the help desperately. Would you be able to give this person advice?
Sure. My first question would be, where did you ask the question? There are different programs. So if your spouse is a veteran, you'll get different answers than if they're not. And there are lots of different waiver programs. So if you go to Paid for Care, you'll see all of the waiver programs that are available, and it will mention if a spouse is eligible or not. So if you weren't able to be paid through that one Medicaid waiver program, there's possibility that there's a different one. So that would be my first piece of advice. The next would be, do you have an adult child or another family member that could be hired? And third, even in self-direction, it's not limited to just paying a family caregiver. If you're accepted on the Medicaid waiver program, you could use those funds to hire somebody else to help.
Thank you. And I think you've already responded to this, but maybe you can add. It says, I'm a caregiver for my mom and dad, live in California. Can I get reimbursed as their daughter? I think that's kind of what you were just saying, but you could clarify a little bit.
Kind of. I'm going to be a little picky about the word reimburse because there's no reimbursement, right? It would only be if they could be hired, if mom or dad qualifies for a waiver program, they could be paid to provide personal care moving forward. It will not, none of these waiver programs will reimburse your out-of-pocket costs. So if you're buying incontinence products or for driving them to the doctor, your gas, you're not going to get money usually for those out-of-pocket costs. We're talking about an hourly wage for providing that personal care.
Thank you, Lisa. That helps. The other question they have is that in California, if a senior qualifies for Medicare, the caregiver can apply for caregiver apply for again, they use the term reimbursement from in-home supportive services. Can they do that?
I'm not sure I quite understand that question, Sarita. I'm sorry. Is the question if the person qualifies for Medicare? Is that what you said?
Medical.
Okay.
Medical.
So again, similar to what Lisa said, for
right.
IHSS, it's not a reimbursement, it's a payment for the care that is provided. So you wouldn't, for example, be able to send IHSS a bill and say, hey, I've been taking care of my mom since January. That's not how it works. It's just a payment for services provided.
Okay, thank you. The other question, a lot of people have a question about Social Security. Is that considered part of your income when you're applying for caregiving?
Yes, for benefits eligibility, Social Security does count.
All right, let's see. The others are comments. This person didn't say what the issue was, but just commented that they do all of this caregiving tasks, taking and take care of their 95-year-old husband who is a veteran of Korea. They didn't say whether they had a question or not, but hopefully they're getting some resources. Now, just aside, if people from other states want to find more information about what you said, where would they go and look?
So the link that we're dropping into the website will find information for all states. And if you indicate that you're caring for a veteran, it will also give you information about the caregiving opportunities to be paid in your state, as well as the federally based programs.
Thank you. That's great.
So, Rita, can I ask a question that I see? Someone's asking, what is the hourly wage for caretakers?
So that's a terrific question. You're not going to like the answer. I feel like a broken record. It's different in each state.
And
But I will say this. And California's by county. Great. Thank you, Vanessa. But I want to say this. Please, everybody, be wary of scams. If somebody emails you or you see an ad pop up and it says, we can get you paid, we'll just keep a percentage of what you earn, don't go down that route, okay? Contact the Medicaid office in your state, contact the area agency on aging in your state, but nobody has to take money from you for you to get paid if you qualify for the programs.
Now, somebody is asking, what if the person you're taking care of has dementia? You said something about having to sign, yeah.
That's
the
a great
timesheet.
answer, and then I'm going to pitch it over to Vanessa. So if the person who qualifies to receive these services has dementia or any other health condition where they are not capable of managing their own care, and a representative can be appointed for them to do the hiring and the managing. That is something that you will work through with the case manager once you're accepted in a waiver program.
Thank you.
And I would add to that, that if that person is going to be you, if you are going to be the supervisor and the person working, I would strongly suggest that before getting into that relationship, that you make sure you have your power of attorney for healthcare and finance well established. So there's lots of resources on how to do that. But again, before you enter into that relationship, whether it's because the person has dementia or they have another illness or disability that means that they can't manage it, I would get that paperwork in order.
Thank you, Vanessa. And this other person is asking, is through the state the only way to get paid as a caregiver? What about care.com sites? Can anyone do it?
So then we get into some really interesting situations. So let's say, my sister is taking care of my mom and the state programs aren't working. So she goes on care.com, becomes a caregiver to be paid. Well, that means mom's paying her out of pocket. There's no magic pool of money in a situation like that. That would be a situation where if your care recipient has the financial resources, they could then pay you to be a family caregiver. And you could do that through a platform like a care.com or through an agency. There are a lot of different opportunities. But just to be perfectly clear, that means that the person receiving the care is then paying you out of pocket.
Thank you. That's good to know. This other question is, what do they mean by spend down income? My mom will never qualify based on income, but her net is much lower after she deducts the board and care fees for her husband. They have joint accounts. And then she is below.
I'm sorry, and then what?
And then she is below, but I'm not sure what that means. Well, the question is, what do they mean by spend down income? My mom will never qualify based on income, but her net is much lower after she deducts the board and care fees for her husband because they have joint accounts. She
So
would
Vanessa-
qualify if she deducts that.
So I think I understand this question. I'm gonna answer it as if this is the question that I'm being asked. So my understanding is you're saying, from my income, can I deduct the care cost for taking care of this person, right? So her income is, let's say her income is $100 and the care costs are $50. So is the net income what we're looking at? And the answer to that is generally no. So there are some things that will be deducted, right? So people have mentioned like certain insurance programs, certain life insurance, things like that. But your general life costs are not deducted from your income when it comes to your qualification. They're not looking at your net income after you pay your rent or you pay your assisted living fee. They're looking at your actual gross income in large part.
Thank you.
And
we have another question here coming in from the YouTube side. And the question is, what if the recipient's Social Security is higher than the income limit? Would they still be able to qualify?
because
Go ahead, Martin. I'm sorry.
no, you can take that, Lisa.
I was going to say, well, the first answer is it depends on your state. So as Vanessa was outlining with some of the changes in the rules for Medi-Cal recently, I want to also say that wherever you are and your care recipient are, maybe you were earning too much 2 years ago, but what if the rules have changed? So I wanted to just really quick and do a little PSA and say, just because you were rejected once for having too much income doesn't mean that that hasn't changed. So anyway.
I want to also, Sarita,
go ahead, yeah.
I want to quickly chime in on the spin down part. That process is that's more of a financial planning process question. And it's a process, the proper term for that is decumulation. So that's the process of spending down your assets over time. But one of the things that you want to refer to in that case is your taxable income and which parts of your income will be taxed and what expenses can be taxed. This is a conversation that's worth having with a certified financial planner or having a conversation with an accountant so that you can have a better sense of what parts of your income are taxable and what part of your expenses may offset those taxes, right? I mean, may offset some of your income, which will make your taxable income a bit lower. So it's a bigger conversation, and it's one that's worth having with someone who's a really good tax planner in that case, because you may be eligible in some cases a little more than you may know that you are.
Thank you, Martin.
You're welcome.
Okay, the other question we have is, if my parents live with me, do they do checks to make sure the home is suitable for the recipients? Does anyone know that?
Yes, in most states, there are going to be checks, especially if you're caring for somebody with an intellectual or developmental or physical disability. And they are checking predominantly to make sure that the care recipient is in a safe environment. And yes, I'll say it, they're also checking to make sure that there is no fraud or abuse going on.
Okay. Thank you. We have a question here that says, my mother has private insurance because she retired from Kaiser. Will that affect her qualifying for eligibility? Doesn't say what. So I'm assuming they're trying to get care.
Right. So if she has private insurance, the question is, I would assume if she's retired, then it's probably a retiree Medicare benefit. But that doesn't mean that she would not at some point be Medicaid eligible. So just a quick little more information than anybody needs to know. It is possible for somebody to have both Medicare and Medicaid. So that would be another point where I will echo Martin and say to talk to a financial planner or talk to somebody at your local AAA or Medicaid office, because just because she has a retiree benefit doesn't mean that she could not qualify for Medicaid.
Thank you. Let's see.
So Rita, I had one question that came directly to me, and it's a pretty good question. Do you mind if I ask
Go
this?
for it.
So someone said, I care for my mom, and she has an LTC policy that will last for only 4 years once a claim is made. Will we be able to apply for IHHS in California, even if she has an LTC policy? Do you know that, Vanessa?
You know, I'm not entirely sure. I would, again, talk to a financial planner that can look at that policy too and see what makes sense. The policy itself is not income, it's an asset, so it shouldn't count against you financially. But I would talk to a financial planner about what logically makes sense, like whether it makes sense to use those things simultaneously, because those policies can be quite complicated and they're all very different. So in terms of being income, it won't affect your income eligibility, but I would seriously consider talking to someone about what to do, what path to take in that case.
We have another question here. Should a person apply for SSI benefits in addition to Medicare and Medi-Cal to help pay for assisted living? Does anyone have a view on that?
I'm sorry, Sarita, can I get the question one more time?
Yes. Should a person apply for SSI benefits in addition to Medicare and Medi-Cal to help pay for assisted living? So they want to apply for all of the social benefits. Yeah.
So Medicare and Medi-Cal, neither of those will pay for assisted living. So there is no, in terms of paying for assisted living, there is no benefit to having either of those programs involved. The other piece of that is that someone who has income that qualifies for Medi-Cal may not have income that qualifies them for certain assisted living. So again, I would talk really closely with a Martin type, a financial advisor who knows a lot about aging and long-term care. Because you're going to want to consider which is the better option. Much like, I'll make a plug for that AARP paid for care website again, much like that has that tool where you can put in where you're at and see what your options are. Long-term care, assisted living versus IHSS is another spot where you're going to want to look at what your options are and make a really informed decision. There's multiple avenues you can take. Taking some of those avenues closes off other ones to you, right? So you want to make a really informed decision.
Thank you. Let's see. We have so many questions that I'm having a hard time picking any. They're all so good.
Yeah, we have time for one more question.
Yes. Let's take one more. If Medi-Cal pays for caregiving when the person, what is this? Is there a drawback of benefits paid by Medicare or Medi-Cal when the person dies? I can't read the last line for some reason. It's not coming up. Okay, let's find this one.
So Rita, while you're folks doing that, I want to clarify one thing. When we talk about finding a financial professional, I just want to make sure that we're aware that all financial professionals are not made equal. They don't all have the same experience, right? In most cases, your financial planner, they are focused on wealth and assets in a big way. So if you want to talk to someone, I saw someone in the chat mention that you could talk to a lawyer who focuses on aging. And in some cases, that could be the better person for understanding some of the legality around some of your programs. It may not be a financial planner. And in some cases, you may want to talk to a financial coach who can help you to understand income. So, in different cases, it's different people, but whoever you decide to interview, to decide to pick as a financial professional, make sure that they are interested in your specific situation and understand your specific situation so that they can help you specifically, because personal finance is very personal.
Thank you. There's a rather long question here. If you can quickly give us an answer, and I think you've already addressed this, but just to reiterate, the person says, I'm a caregiver for my wife who has been diagnosed with a neuromuscular disease. It is progressive and incurable, and she's totally disabled, needing help for everything. She just qualified for Medicare, and this person is pursuing IHHAS help. I want to know, as a primary caregiver, would I qualify for payment for maximum hours for taking care of my wife, or do I have to hire someone certified by IHHS?
So it sounds like the question is, can this person be the only caregiver under IHSS?
Right.
You know, a lot of the time a family member is the only caregiver under IHSS. When you're talking about maximum hours, there is a maximum number of hours in California that you can be receiving. So the IHSS will only pay up to a certain maximum number of hours, no matter how many needs the person has. What that is going to depend on the assessment by the case manager. So that part I can't answer. It'll depend on when basically a social worker will come out to the home, do an assessment, and that will generate what the number of hours is. But it's not uncommon for a person to only have one IHSS worker, especially if it's their spouse.
Thank you. And one quick short question, which I think any one of you can answer. The person wants to know, can anyone become a caregiver, or do you need training or certification?
So I tried to answer that quickly in the chat, and the answer is it varies state to state. And if you are a family caregiver who is going to be paid through one of the programs that we talked about today, they might have some training programs that are required. If you are looking to be part of the direct care workforce and you want to be paid, but not to care for a family member, but to make that your job and work for an agency, then depending on the level of care you want to provide and what you're hired to do, either the employer and or the state might have training requirements.
Thank you. And I think we'll stop there in the interest of time. Jacqueline?
Okay, thank you very, very much. Before we close out, we'd like to ask you to very quickly tell us what you learned from today's presentation. Put your answers in the chat. So, Sarita, we're back to you. What do you see anything in the chat?
What people are saying, thank you. Oh, one person says Medi-Cal is key. Where to go and get more information. I learned that caregivers can get paid. Everybody's really appreciative of all the information they've got today. Good news about the new asset limits. Appreciate the links. So looks like people have learned a lot from today's talk.
Okay, thank you. A lot to learn. Thank you all for participating today. We hope you feel encouraged and have a better understanding of how to get paid to be a caregiver. If you're interested in rewatching this program on or any of our previous programs, you can visit our Piggy Bank Essentials webpage. The link has been placed in the chat. And a lot of links to resources have been placed in the chat, so please review those to get some additional information or to follow up. And we also invite you to check out some of our other AARP events. Join us for Tea and Coffee Tuesdays on Tuesday, June 11th at 9 a.m. Pacific for Traveling on a Budget. In addition, we are continuing our Juneteenth series on Wednesday, June 19th at 12 p.m. Pacific, and it's Advancing Through Service. And please come back for our Piggy Bank Essentials in September series of 2024. And again, a big thank you to our guests, Martin Booker, Vanessa Souza, and Lisa Winstill, for sharing a lot of really important information. Our chat moderator, Sarita, our tech specialists, Vince King and Connie Moore, our AARP